Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're back. I am Armdoy, your host of the Get Free and Fulfilled podcast. And today I am excited to welcome Megan Cook. She is a business strategist. She is also helping mostly small businesses or, like startups, new businesses who are coming in and they're just trying to sort of figure out the world of business. So she's here to help people or businesses like that. And so, welcome, Megan. Happy to have you on.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here.
Oh, I'm so excited that you're here. We finally did it. We've been meaning to do this for how long now?
It's been a while. So yeah, thank you for having me.
I'm excited.
I'm really excited about what you're doing.
Thank you so much. And again, welcome. So, just to start off, like I always do, want to ask and get to know you. So, also everybody who's hearing is get to know about you and your background, like your childhood, where you grew up, sort of like your cultural background.
Sure. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest. I'm still there. I love it up here in the northwest corner of the U.S. And I grew up on a mini farm, and in a pretty strict religious environment. So that evolved into kind of some guns blazing later in my life. And I feel like now I've reached more of the center, right? I went from one pendulum to the other, and it's an interesting process becoming an adult in that way.
That's
um,
interesting.
what's that?
What's the center? What does that mean to you?
Well, just less extreme.
Mm, mm.
And I think as we get older, we build more confidence, more self identity, so that we're not have as much to prove.
Mm.
Yeah.
And what was that like for you? Are you feeling finally that you've reached that center, or are you still learning to still figure it out? And what was that like, the journey?
Well, I don't know that I want so badly to arrive on certain topics, right? But I know in reality we're always shifting. So have I found center? No, but my pendulum doesn't swing as widely.
I love that. I love that. It's like, but how did you get to that place where you're able to sort of not swing heavily to the extremes?
Um, I've done a lot of work on my own self-worth, my own mindset,
Mm.
processing through just the baggage that we accumulate, and also really, I'm in my 11th year teaching at a prison. So I teach college courses part-time at a prison, and it was it's been an incredible growth journey because I'm confronted regularly about people very saturated in shame and very resistant, and lots of these kind of rebel attitudes. uh, and when you see that and you recognize it, right, I feel like in so many ways it's helped me see more of myself, because I recognize pieces of myself in my students and I say, oh, that's what that looks like. Whew.
Wow, that's quite interesting. So when you recognize certain things and you also see that in yourself, what was the next step after when you see things, you recognize it? Do you sort of like try hard to get out of it, or you ease yourself into maybe changing things?
um that's a good question. I think like over time, right, we first start recognizing things and then we practice shifting them, and the way I've done that is reading, therapy, um, learning a lot about boundaries, which I also teach regularly to both my students and my clients, because where a lot of people end up being stuck just in life, and business is a reflection of our life, um, boundaries come into play quite often. And just learning to practice that balance. Meditation has also been really valuable in my life, grounding techniques, things like that.
Yeah, I love meditation as well. talking about boundaries, like what is the biggest thing that you've like learned or are practicing now when it comes to boundaries? Like what comes in mind for me, it's like the word no, um, saying no when I mean no.
Right. For me, yes, absolutely. No. Simple things for time boundaries and personal boundaries are really important. What I'm still learning sometimes is that kind of a Buddhist principle of detaching
Mm,
from the expectation. So I really am working on eradicating expectations from my vocabulary because I feel like they're bullshit. They will only bring you pain and struggle, and we need to let go of them. And were you told, Aram, to have that high expectations? Were you kind of raised with that
yeah,
idea? Because
for
most of us
sure.
were, right?
Myself and other people.
Yeah. And I really am about standards. And a lot of people initially will say, well, that's just semantics. But to me, standards are adhering to your values and principles, but it's minus that expectation piece.
Mm,
Um, so that when we do set boundaries, a critical piece of that is that we're setting them for ourselves, not to shift other people's behavior.
mm.
And we can't expect, it's like we're building a path to connect, but it's not up to us to walk that path back, right? It's really ultimately up to the other individual, and they may not choose to respect your boundary.
And what do you do in that case?
So when it comes to someone not honoring your boundary, then you need to get into the consequences of what that means. Like, for example, if I had a student recently who's very manipulative, which is not a surprise. He's incredibly smart. So there's a first red flag on the inside. And so he's repeating things back to me that I've said, just trying to really familiarize himself with me, like you and me are the same kind of stuff. And he was asking me to bring in some files, and it's just outside of the scope of what I do. And so I said, I recognize what you're doing, and I need you to stop. And if you can't stop, then you're not going to be able to work for me anymore. And so I don't like to introduce the consequence if it's not needed. And I find before introducing the consequence with someone you really care about, um, I like to think of it from like a very heart-centered place, right? Like what's the end goal here? And
Right.
sometimes thinking about the relationship and what you want it to be versus what you feel internally and you feel like you need to say, that can be tricky space to navigate.
Agreed. Agreed. And you mentioned time boundaries earlier. I feel
Yeah.
like time boundaries is one that only took me recently to be more aware of it and be more sort of like intentional about it.
Mhm.
But still, there are times where I think, it's like you kind of have to strike the balance of, having the time boundary, but also not neglecting the side of still staying connected with people.
Mhm.
How do you balance that yourself?
It depends on where I'm at with time. Uh, Sometimes I completely turn my phone off and I just disconnect so that I don't have that stress because I want to show up fully for who I'm connecting with, right? So I think that's half the battle is being mindful about where you begin. But then if I only have 15 minutes, I try to be really clear about that upfront. Like, hey, I'd love to hear what you have to say in 15 minutes. And when I do that the most often is when I'm listening to someone perhaps that I know needs to vent. But you know how you could be someone's like emotional dumping ground, and I do not want. I'm just not willing to be that dumpster. But I also understand the need to feel validated in, a struggle. So that's a place where I like to set time boundaries. Like, hey, I hear you, like you're super stressed, and I've got, X amount of time, 5 minutes to really hear about that struggle. And then I'd like to talk about something else. Because that effect after too long, it really starts to affect my own energy, and I just don't want to be there.
Yeah, like I totally agree with that, and I've felt it. So now what I've started doing is like even within that conversation, always try to turn it positive. When I hear that, I was like, okay, asking questions that will sort of encourage the person to think more positively and less negatively. It doesn't always work, but
Mhm.
that's a way to sort of lighten the conversation a little bit and maybe hopefully inspire them to have a different perspective.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think I think sometimes I like to just sit acknowledge a shit sandwich for what it is. Like I sometimes it depends on the scenario, but sometimes to me, it just feels really good to have someone say, uh,
Sorry about that.
"Hey, no worries, it happens." Um, it feels really good to me to just have someone say, "Yeah, that must have been really hard."
Yeah.
And not try to make it anything more than just acknowledging that this does really suck. Like, I don't always need people to put rainbow stickers on my little shit pile. Sometimes I just want to be like, "Oh, yeah, that stinks. Okay, now let's walk around it."
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I like the like walking around idea of it, like first acknowledging it, not ignoring it, knowing that it's there. Just find a lot of times, how do you do that without sort of like wallowing it in it?
Mhm.
Because sometimes people want sort of like maybe understanding, but maybe take it a little too far into feeling sorry. Like,
Yeah, like victim mindset.
exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, first, I am more and more selective around my time concerning who I'm around and who I'm even engaging in. Because the people who I engage in regularly aren't all caught up in drama. So I love, oh my God, online dating profiles. I love it when someone says, "I am not into drama." Like, thank you for the red flag. Thank you so much for letting me know how dramatic your life is. But um it's a lifestyle way of living. And it becomes comfortable. So people who live there a lot aren't used to stepping outside of it because they're just so wrapped up in their victim story.
Yeah.
Um, Avoiding that, how I don't know. It really depends on the scenario, right? Like there's not one easy answer. But if I get too far along, um, a boundary I feel like I could set in a hypothetical scenario might be, uh, I hear that you're really struggling right now, but I also need to protect my own energy because I have a habit of getting wrapped up in other people's struggle. So I would like to shift the conversation. Is that okay with you? And if it's not okay with them and they need to saturate in their story, then it's time for me to go.
Mm, yeah. Agreed. How
So then
do
I'm really honoring them, right? And but also honoring myself.
Yeah, exactly. And do you have like a rule of thumb for anybody who's like right now are recognizing that maybe they have surrounded themselves with people who are not really serving them, and they've decided, okay, I want to start changing that. What is the first step to start changing that and turning that around?
I would tell them to look up the Cartman's victim triangle, or it's called the Cartman's drama triangle. I call it the victim triangle. Um, and the empowerment dynamic that's kind of the opposite of that. Are you familiar with the
No,
victim triangle?
no.
So there's a kind of, if you think of a triangle, there's three different roles that all of us play. And really collectively as a consciousness, we live in a victim consciousness. So a victim says stuff like, "Oh, poor me, it's not fair, no responsibility, blame game for days, and just helpless, powerless." All of these roles are powerless in this triangle. So the victim is one role. Another role is the rescuer, where, oh, we're going to go in and captain save everything, take over, enabler. You see this a lot with addicts, people enabling behavior to continue, helicopter parents. Um, and what it does is it keeps the victim being a victim. The other role, the third role, is persecutor, which they're like, I see you, victim, you're a piece of shit, and I'm going to make sure you know that, and I'm going to punish you. And that even leads into the abuse. But at the end of the day, everybody ends up being a victim because the rescuer's like, they're not, giving me any credit. I'm helping them so much. And the victim's angry because they don't really want, internally, we don't want someone taking care of all of our problems for us because it cripples us. And whether we can consciously know that or not, instinctively we do. And the persecutor's like, well, this wouldn't be such a problem if you weren't such an idiot. I wouldn't be in this situation or whatever. So it's like you get this dynamic going. It can happen so fast. We all have our default go-to roles. We also play all three, and we could jump around in a single conversation, like take out the garbage, for example. Right? Like, you didn't take out the garbage. Well, it wasn't my turn. And we start just persecuting. And in the end, someone's always the victim, and oh, it's not fair, and you're being too mean to me. And then someone's like, fine, I'll just take out the garbage. Right. And then they end up rescuing the situation, but it's toxic.
Yeah.
And all of the power in that is given over to other people. So the opposite of the drama triangle would be the empowerment dynamic, where instead of the rescuer, or excuse me, instead of the victim, you're being the survivor or the responsible person. The learner is what I like to call that opposite role, where you are doing, like you were saying, Aram, ask questions, right? Like, what is my role in this? How can I move out of this, or what are my options? Who do I need to ask for help? The rescuer becomes like the teacher, where there's boundaries around how much you help somebody, and then you let them go on their own. And then the opposite of the persecutor is the mentor, where you're going to challenge people, but you're going to do it in a kind and healthy way. You're not going to stand by as they're doing, whatever it is you view they shouldn't be doing. But it's from a place of love, not punishment.
Hmm. I love that. And, it's like these opposites, the learner, the teacher, and the mentor. Um, so just speaking one by one, maybe if we're talking about the learner,
Mhm.
what is one first step can somebody go from being the opposite of that to start to become a learner? Because I assume it's a process.
Sure, it can be. It depends on the dynamic of the relationship. Like, where this gets really hard is with family or people who are close to you. Because as I know you understand, with anybody who's done growth work, um, when you start setting boundaries, you're changing the rules of the game. And people who are in your life who maybe haven't done the same level of growth work, or aren't where you're at in terms of evolving, they don't like that very much. So I would say the place to start, it comes back to boundaries. Healthy boundaries are what keeps us from being victimized in that drama.
Yeah, and like standing your ground, because like you said, at first they won't like it. So how do you stand your ground and be like, this is it? Because at first, for me personally, it wasn't always, a given in the beginning to be like, okay, this is my boundary, this is what I mean. And then I had instances in the beginning where I did not uphold my boundary. And then I felt bad about it. So it took a bit of a time and more sort of like willingness and determination on my part to keep doing it. And then once I started upholding my boundary with a little bit of fear, at first I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? I said no. But then I got used to it. At first, when I did it, I was like, oh, I did this. I like this. And all of a sudden, I kind of felt a little invincible. Like, yeah, I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, boundaries are no easy task, and I've worked so hard on creating them, and I've certainly, it's a muscle you build. But I still fail at it. I still say, "Oh man, like I really should have been more clear in my boundary, or I could have had better follow through, or I just kind of let it fizzle out. Like I felt kind of worn down in a way, perhaps." So I think a gift that I had at going in to teach in prison was that I was put in a scenario where clear lines had to be drawn. You didn't get a fence ride, hum and haw, like, well, maybe it was like point blank, no, that's not going to fly here. Which doesn't, it's a little more hardcore than translates to the free world. But the concept is the same. So what I would advise in starting out with boundaries, and this is something I still do when I feel anxious about what is it that I want to say, I journal. Journaling to me is the fastest way to understand what are truly my own thoughts, free of the clutter, and other people's ideas. And when you journal, practice why is this important to you, and write out what it is you'd like to say and practice saying it out loud in the mirror.
Mm.
I think that's incredibly powerful because it's scary as hell, especially if you start getting in these stories, right? Of, oh, they're not going to like me, or it's going to damage our relationship, or wherever else we panic about it going. And so
Yeah.
oftentimes, I'm curious to hear from you, Aram, if you found this, like the anxiety of setting boundaries and you think it's going to be a big deal, and then you just get a reaction like,
Sure.
oh, okay.
For sure, that's so true. I mean, I remember like even over text. I mean, I want to say no, but then even as I'm writing the no, like my armpits are sweating. I'm like, oh my God, my palms are sweating, my armpits are sweating. And I'm entitled to that. But it's like learning to do it from a place of like self-worth was a
Mm.
learning process. Finally when I did it, and then the reaction was like, oh, okay, cool. Next time. I was like, oh my God, what was I getting so freaked out about?
I feel like that's so common for entrepreneurs as well, the armpit sweating with raising prices. And then they raise their price and nobody bats an eyelash.
Yeah,
Like,
please talk about that
holy
some
shit,
more.
I could have been charging this for how long?
Yeah. Yeah, that's such a thing that you mentioned. I feel like is a great segue actually. How would you help an entrepreneur, a new one who's like really you see their prices and they're so low and you like raise your prices and then you get that pushback because they don't feel like they're worthy yet to charge those prices. How would you help somebody in that?
I well, something that I see all the time, especially coming from a background in graphic design and the creative arts, inevitably every person who starts out undercharges grossly, and most often in business too. Um, but I think that come part of gaining the confidence to raise your prices comes with some experience, right? Like your level of confidence is tethered to the price that you offer. So to me, I think it is in gaining the experience. I also think that for a very beginning entrepreneur, I know for me, when I first started, I struggled personally with my own value. So I was very adamant about um, charging for certain experiences that when I look back now, I think, you know, the question, how can I help? I think is a better question to ask throughout your business, especially when you're just getting going, more than how much am I charging? Because when you start helping people, you're going to gain the experience. You're going to see what people really want, how you can really help. And then that's where you're really going to create value, um, that you can give a price to and start elevating that price. So to me, value comes first, and that's not in what they give you, but it's what you have to offer, and price follows.
Mm. So, would you recommend for someone who's first starting out to set their prices in a way that they're comfortable with, even though it's probably low, or maybe start with free stuff before they can actually start, entering into charging and prices or some things like that?
Sure. There's some very polarizing schools of thought on this. And I think it's important to ask what are you getting out of it as well? Like, so for free spec work, right? Later on in my design career, I would have people pretend like they're doing me a favor by giving a chance for me to design something for them for free. And I'm like, that doesn't work for me. I don't, I'm going to direct you to a website where you can order something for $25, because that's, you know, not anything that I do. But I guess I would say yes, do free stuff if you're very, very green and just barely, barely starting out. I always advise business owners to have another job when they're starting out, because then you're not desperate. Then you're not just taking any kind of job. Um, there's a famous art company, a poster company. I love them. They're amazing. And they have only done rock, alternative music style posters. And they're a company called Modern Dog. They're based out of Seattle. They're super famous. They have their posters actually in the Louvre in Paris.
Oh.
Um, yeah, but when they started out, they were on such a shoestring budget. They were living in this trailer. They were so hungry for work, but they had such a clear vision that work would come, and it might even be well-paying work, but they said, "Thank you, but that's not what we do." And they had to be willing to go through that struggle to build their voice and stay so laser focused on their mission to be able to grow and evolve in the way that they did. So getting really clear on your vision and the value that you bring, I think is also critical, because when you know, and in your, like, you just so grounded in the value you offer, then you can start understanding how to think about price.
Mm. Yeah. So, what the question that arises in my mind right now is with the vision, getting clear on that vision. Is that something that comes over time as you keep, fine tuning your work? You get more clear with your vision. Is that something that you should have from the get go?
I don't think that there's a perfect answer to that, because some people are just laser focused. I was always kind of jealous of the kids who were just so clear, and I'm going to be whatever. And it didn't even have to be a doctor, but they just knew.
Mhm.
And I've never, even still, I don't feel like I fully know, or because I'm always kind of shifting um, and growing. And I think that that's allowed me to build a really beautiful skill set. Um, but uh, hmm, I would say focus on building your vision, but I think uh, if you focus on value first, the vision may come from that. Like, really, how do you want to help people? And your vision should stem from there.
Yeah. So, for someone who's first starting out and or somebody who just has an idea that they want to start a business, then they come to you and they're like, okay, I want to start a business. I want to help people. What would be your answer to that?
Well, I would ask them what their skill sets are. What do they care about? What on a really shitty day when nothing's going your way, when you're having self doubt and your confidence is waning, is still worth it for you to slug through that to keep doing it again tomorrow? Because, man, entrepreneurship just sounds like this really cool, sexy thing, but you have to have a certain kind of grit and spirit for it, because it's not all rainbows. There's a lot of um, struggle that goes with it that you don't know until you're doing it.
Yeah, so true. Very true. And it, this is just like probably a personal question that I think many people who are in that boat could benefit from, which is like when you're first starting out, there's so many roles, that you sort of kind of have to play as the
Mhm,
solo entrepreneur.
mhm,
When is the right time to be like, okay, have to play these roles, or you know delegate things that you feel like, because can you really do it all as an entrepreneur, like be a one person show? Maybe not. What do you think of that?
yes, you can be a one person show up to a certain amount, but you can only grow so far if you're trying to be all the things. um, because I've done a one man show with my graphic design business, but even just hiring out someone to do billing, or hiring someone to do social media, or whatever it is that you're struggling with, I would say that one, if you have a steady income coming in, then hire someone before you think you're really ready. But you need to have a steady income stream so that you can, keep them on. But and then, hire someone for a small amount of work, right? I think one of the best places to get an entry level kind of staff member who's really hungry is to look at colleges and people who are actively involved in groups and who really just are craving that kind of experience and aren't expecting a crazy high wage. Because that's the other thing is, um, I really want to pay people a fair price, but to pay them consistently and you know, feel good about the value exchange of their work, I also am inspired then to work harder, because now I have this other person that I'm responsible for, that I made a commitment to, and who made a commitment to me. So I want to deliver. And I think that can be a good way for you to push yourself more than you might by hiring someone just a little bit before you're really ready.
Mhm. Yeah, that makes sense. Now, the opposite of that, which is what if you don't have steady income coming in yet? And so, how do you prioritize those different roles that you play as a one man show?
Um, I'd say, well, focus on your customers always. And then use like Reddit is a great place to go search in your field for what people are really saying. Join Facebook groups that are who your target audience is, who your ideal client is, so that you learn how to speak to people in their language. Because the way I would talk about what I do, the way I help people, I can do graphic design. I'm doing a lot of writing, even some editing. I can do copy. I can do content development, like help people develop e-courses. I've done trainings, I've done workshops. Like there's all these different things, but that's not the how. That's the how. That's not why actually people want my help. They want my help because I'm getting them results and I'm helping them solve a problem. So
Mm,
what problems do you solve in the language of your customer? That's a great way to find that wording.
mm,
So then your marketing efforts are more laser focused in, and you're talking directly to your people. So when they read what you're sharing on social media, email, newsletter, whatever, they're saying, "Oh my gosh, that's me. She's talking to me."
right.
And then that's how you start doing what's called content marketing or inbound marketing, where it's like you're not just speaking to your people in their language, but you're also offering that value up front. So that's why so many people are coming up with ebooks or podcasts, for example, right? Like there's a ton of value, and then people see what you're doing and they think, wow, like they're truly an expert, and I want help from them.
Mm. Yeah. So when you mentioned social media also, which is like such a thing for any entrepreneur really, how can somebody start tackling that as a one man show, and also later on as something that they outsource, which is easier when you outsource it, but first as a one man show, there's so many sort of ideas on how to do it or how to do it right, when to
Mhm.
post, and it's like how often to post. When you first starting out, is that something that you have to worry about in terms of like algorithm, how often to post, scheduling your posts? Is like, it's how do you do that?
I would just say fuck that. Which I know is crazy. I know it's
I don't think
crazy,
it's crazy at all.
but I actually don't engage in social media very often for professional reasons. So I don't want to come across as a hypocrite in giving social media advice, but I have developed a lot of social media campaigns for some pretty large companies. I worked with the Weather Channel and some of their social media stuff. And um, for me, I really love developing relationships. Social media is probably something that I will get into, but what I will say and that I advise clients on is to start with one thing. And really, like, to me, marketing should be a happy thing, not this like, "Oh my god, I gotta post, ugh." Like, I don't feel good on a really rigid schedule. I like to give myself, like, bubbles of structure, but then some freedom within those bubbles. So, like, if I need to post, I'm gonna say, "Okay, like, let's just start with 2 times a week, get in the habit of posting on one channel." And it is far better, in my opinion, to focus on posting stuff of substance, of true value, than of just rapid firing a bunch of random bullshit. Do you want to be someone who's clutter in the noise? Or do you want to be that refreshing pause where they're like, "Oh, wow, like that really hit home for me."
I love that. That actually simplifies it for a lot of people, especially when they're first starting out, because it's like social media can be such a scary medium for a lot of people when they're first starting off. It's like, oh, this is such a beast. It's a full-time job. How do I do that and then focus on my customers at the same time? I like that idea of just like pick one and then make it worth your while, like scheduling having 2 posts a week and
Yeah.
quality posts.
Hmm. And in
Yeah.
the meantime, work on one piece of valuable content. Maybe it's a checklist. Maybe you do a quiz in like type form. Maybe you have like something that I'm working on right now is the ultimate guide to saying no. Um, and it has specific things of like when someone does this in a professional setting, here's a way to say no without feeling like an asshole. And when somebody does this in a professional setting, just different ways to help people start setting those time boundaries and really owning their personal power so that their reflection in their business can also be powerful, right? Because their business is a reflection of ourselves. So that one piece of content that highlights what you do and that adds a lot of value to your customer. And I'm not saying give it all away for free, but like if you have an online course, give away the first lesson for free. Let them, give them a taste of what you really do. Don't just show them a menu, but actually let them take a bite.
I love that. And the $1 million question, I think for any business person, whether you're a startup or you've been in it for a while, is like clients, getting clients. Like your
Mm,
doors are open. How do you get people in? Especially if you're first starting out. Like,
sure.
yeah.
I think it depends on the business, but product-based businesses often grow more quickly when they can give free samples. Like Estee Lauder grew her business that way. She just gave out samples for free for a long time. And of course, like everybody knows who that is, right?
Mhm.
Um, for a service-based business, I would say the same thing, right? Like offer an introductory rate. And also, I think it depends on a lot of factors. Some people find people through social media and just start talking to them. One strategy is to go into some Facebook groups, for example, or something like that, and just start answering people's questions. Again, it comes back to that value. And then that's how I've gotten some clients. I don't go in and say, "Hey, look at me, you should hire me." But I do go in and say, "Wow, like I see you're struggling with this problem, and have you considered this? And you might, here's a great link that might serve you."
Mhm.
And then, I'll get a DM. Um, I did this early years ago when you could still do live things. Um, I had, but years before that, I hosted this courage mindset workshop, and I did a few of them. And then I started feeling like, okay, I'm gaining traction. Like I'm going to rent this space. I'm going to do this little brunch. Like it's going to be just all Philly and it's going to be so good. And I didn't market it effectively. It didn't fill up the way I wanted it to. So I think I lost like $100. And I spent a fair amount of money leading up to it. And I also made the mistake of relying on promises, not checks or money in the bank, because a lot of people will say, "Oh yeah, yeah, sounds good." Blah, blah. But you know that they mean it when there's money, right?
I
So
love that.
so I get this, I have this just kind of crisis with myself and thinking, well, maybe I just think I'm cooler than I really am. And maybe the value I offer isn't really the value that I think I offer. And I really got down on myself. Like I was very much in a fixed mindset about it. And I just kind of felt stuck. And which is just really not a great place to be as a human, but especially as a business owner. Um, and what's I just love this so much because it's one of my go-to stories is about 6 months after this failure, I get a call and he says, "Well, hello, my name is Dr. So and so and I hear you work with in communications. What can you do for my 60 practitioners? And it ended up leading to a coaching opportunity with an oncologist where I helped him with his bedside manner. I got a ton of incredible experience. I got my, first 5-figure check, and wrote a proposal, and it felt so cool. And it all came from someone who was in that workshop. Never in my mind did I think that that was how it would evolve. So it's like, even learning to embrace the so-called failures, see what you can learn from them, and then trust that you keep showing up, you keep giving that value, and it's going to unfold in ways that you never even saw or thought possible.
That is so well said. Yeah, that trust part. And think of the failures are, it's just like a stepping stone to something greater. As long as you sort of stay on the path, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, I love that. So when I'm hearing you speak, this thing comes up with, like, with all the clients that you've helped. What do you think is the one or two things in terms of mindset that you would like for them to develop in terms of mindset or personal growth? What do you see often that you feel like is sort of missing in terms of mindset that you think that they could use, not just as humans, but also probably very helpful for their business?
Uh, I think I think a lot of people are too close to their story, and I think talking to someone that you really trust can help you shift your mindset, right? Like what I see is we're so close, we get wrapped up in some of the unnecessary details, and sometimes an outside perspective can really give us more clarity in that lens. So I would say the mindset that you are supposed to know and you're supposed to get it right is something that I see regularly, right? Like, how do I not know this stuff? I need to figure it out. Well, I mean, you could probably save yourself a number of steps by inviting someone who's been there and done that and has the wisdom to help you smooth out some of that rocky road.
Mm, yeah.
And then ego gets in the way for all of us. It's helpful, there's healthy ego that keeps us safe and protects us, but I think don't take you can't take things personal. Business should be personal in the way that you, I think, show up and pour out of yourself, but then it boils back to those expectations that people will receive that in a certain way and appreciate the value that you bring. Some people just don't get it. They're not there, so they're not your people. And that's not personal.
Yeah. Yeah. True. Very true.
You can and the other thing I would say is you can't be all things to all people. Narrow, whittle down who you're really talking to. You don't talk to ages 18 to 85. You don't talk to both. Well, some businesses do, but like really um, focus in on the problems that you're solving.
Mm, yeah. And I feel like the thing with a lot of, mindset and entrepreneurship, in my mind, they are closely related. But you working with people, business owners, do you ever see the need to help them develop the mindset? And if so, how do you start to help them do that?
Yes, and yes. I think, well, just as human beings, mindset is one of our biggest battles, right? Because our minds tell us crazy stories, and it's easy to believe them if you're not being vigilant about um, really being honest with yourself, but with kindness. I think that that is certainly a struggle for myself, is to look in the mirror and say, hey, Megan, this is how it really is, but not hate on myself for it. Um,
Mm.
I'm kind of getting sidetracked. And what was your original question?
No, it's just that how do you help a person who comes in and you realize that although they're entrepreneurs, there's a level of personal growth and mindset is sort of evolving that or shift a mindset shift that hasn't happened yet that you feel like is necessary. They might not be aware of it, but you see it. How do you sort of help them in that way to help
Mhm.
them get started?
I
Even
never say the
if
word mindset in the beginning. And
why?
mindset's actually a big part of what I do, but I don't sell myself as a mindset person. It's just
Mhm.
one of the vehicles that helps people evolve. Um, so asking questions, just getting people thinking, because when we're wrapped up in our emotions, emotions and cognitive ability are literally a scale. Okay? When our emotions are high, our ability to think rationally and logically tanks.
Mhm.
The best way to start balancing those emotions is to start asking questions to balance the scales. Then when we're not caught up in the story and the emotion, we could start to really address some of those issues.
Yeah. So is it like I don't want to call it but you don't use the word mindset, but yet at some point there's going to be a level of a little bit of that work happening.
Sure.
I
Just
like
not as an introduction,
that.
because I think people who are stuck are like, oh, mindset, you know.
Very true,
And
very true.
I certainly learned that with some of my students. They didn't really want to show up to a communications class and talk about mindset.
Mm.
Um, but that is where I start every class. I start business class with mindset, communications class with mindset, human relations class with mindset, even my writing for business and advertising. I start that class with mindset.
Yeah, I think it's important. They don't have to know. It's like, you come in, you like it's part of it.
Mhm.
Don't have to advertise it, but it's something that's necessary in terms of growth and also growing your own business. Yeah.
For the people who aren't um, comfortable with the word mindset, and I just use that as a gut instinct,
Mm.
I will talk more about like human behavior. Or you know how it is when someone's doing this, like not even talking about the person directly, but maybe like giving an example story and like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then you can lead into some ways that are a little bit separated from them so that you aren't raising that defense mechanism.
Right, right. And when you feel any resistance on part of from the client, how do you handle that?
Grounding technique, breathing. And I will literally on a call like this will be like, just and say let's just do that together a few times. Like even that is activating the I forget which one. There's the parasympathetic sympathetic nervous system and then the other one. I get
It's
them
the
mixed up.
parasympathetic that is like activated when you calm down. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's the one we want. And I know that even just like an audible exhale is getting like transforming your body there. The other thing, I love grounding techniques and just imagining from the solar plexus, a gold cord going down through your legs. Your feet need to be flat on the floor. And then imagine like these tree roots just going down in the earth all the way to the core of earth. And then come back to your solar plexus and imagine a silver cord running up throughout the top of your head and growing out into the stars as a tree. And it's these kinds of things. It just slows things down, gets us out of our head, back into our body, feeling connected. And that's when we can really make cool shit happen. We don't running around here like, a ping pong ball up here. You're not going to make any forward progress.
Yeah, yeah. And how? because like sometimes as a business owner, you I feel like sometimes inspiration is lacking. And how do you, is there a way to help a business owner who's maybe is not feeling inspired and wants something, things to get going, but it's like there's no inspiration yet?
Um, I would say, do you have the right business first? Truly. Um, are you just in it for the money? Because I hear a lot of people saying, and even myself, I've fallen into this trap like, oh, I should do that. I could make money doing that. But that does not give you the inspiration and the hooks to really follow through long term. That's a short term game. So like sell stuff on Craigslist if you're just wanting that money. But if you're not being inspired, then I think there's a lot of things you can do. How much sleep are you getting? What is your mindset? Um, get up and move, do something different, and force. Nothing good comes from force, right? I'm starting a podcast with a very dear friend, and her and I were trying to come up with these names for title, and we wanted it to be cool and we wanted it to be clever. We wanted to be all these things. And then I said, we don't even need to worry about that. And she goes, what if we just called it that? And we started laughing. And then we just started talking, and through conversation, we came up with the name. And but we weren't trying to. So quit trying so hard. Like read a book, walk away, go for a walk, talk to a tree, meditate, like do something different, because it's like time. Like if you're not inspired in your business and it is, you do feel passionate about it, then you need a break.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's even spot on for pretty much everything in life. When you're trying too hard, whether it's your business or your personal relationship or anything, it's likely to not happen. And I've noticed that with meditation recently. So I love meditation. And then lately, when I noticed that, like, it's like it's not happening because I'm trying too hard. And then I was like, okay, and I'm gonna go in, and then my mind was like, I'm not gonna try too hard. Even not trying to try too hard is trying too hard. So I was like, okay, just take a break from the meditation for a little while. But it's so true.
Have you ever been in meditation and been thinking like, uh, oh yeah, I'm doing so good, like I'm really in it, and then you're like, crap, now I'm not in it anymore.
That is so true. It's like, and then your mind starts going, yeah, yeah, that's happened many times. So like, it's like you can get it and lose it easily. And but yeah, the trying too hard part is, yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah. I think there's a book that I want to read. It's been in my stack of to reads for a long time, but it's come up a couple times in like the past week, and I think, okay, these are signs. Like, get that book, and it's called Power versus Force.
Oh, it's by David Hawkins, right?
I'm not sure.
It's
I just read his book, Letting Go, and it was
letting go. Yeah,
so
that's
good.
him.
Love that guy.
That's him.
Um, so perhaps it is, but I see it a lot. And well, the prison is such a great example for so many of these things, but the people with true power, they don't need to flex.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's so true. Well said. It's like when you have it, it's I think it comes in how effortless it is and how relaxed it is. I mean, if it comes from a place of relaxed action or relaxed, effortlessness, then obviously that's the opposite of trying too hard because you bring ease to it. And a lot of times I wonder, well, how do you get to that place? But I also think it's a practice.
Mhm.
We live in a world that's like used to, oh yes, go in with force, you gotta push, you gotta, and maybe that serves us in some way, but sometimes it doesn't serve us.
We live in a very masculine dominated world where it's linear and cerebral and strong. And feminine power is the opposite of that, and we need both. But feminine is creative and in flow, and it is an energy that we're kind of trained out of. And I think from in the beginning, when we were talking about kind of coming to that center, to me, really owning my power has been owning my feminine energy and really being okay with not always having the perfect plan, being okay with relaxing into the flow. And that is owning your power. And it's a big part of it for women, I think.
Yeah, and this is, I feel like a great way to end this, which is like for women business owners, female business owners, talking about owning that power within them, that feminine power. How would you help them do that?
Oh, this is a good question. This is a whole new talk.
I know, right?
I think um, mm, owning your power, for me, it comes with acceptance, right? The first way we the first way that we really learn to shift things, we first have to accept things as they are. That doesn't mean you agree with them, but you have to accept that this is reality right now. And even just accepting that this is reality right now is taking your power back, because true power is internal. So I would encourage people to look at how are you letting other things be in control of your life that are external from you. You're giving away your power.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
don't know if that really answered your question, but
Very much. Thank you. Thank you so much. It just, it's like that feminine power in this world is I feel like we've lost it a lot of times. And I
Mhm.
know myself, I did. I was like, female, I mean, male energy, go, 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 go all the time. Now I am understanding to fall more into the feminine. Doesn't mean that the, masculine side disappears, but there's more balance there, more polarity, where I can sort of identify where I am, or right now what is the energy that I want to be in. Is it like the feminine or the masculine? And you get to choose in that moment.
Yes, and feminine energy is also very playful. And, like, I love laughing, and that's the kind of business that I wanna run. Like, I don't wanna be serious. I wanna be playful, laugh, and really enjoy my life and my clients, and that translates hugely into, I think your overall success as an individual and within your business, not being too serious.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing all these beautiful gold nuggets. I'm so happy that you came. Thank you so much. And please let everyone know where they can find you, what you have going on right now, or anything that's coming up in the future.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was amazing. I'm like, we need to talk more
I know.
because I want to learn more about what you've got going on with your holistic coaching.
Oh, I think you just froze there.
Oh,
Yeah, you are back. You froze there for a second.
okay. Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
That's okay.
My website is withmegancook.com, and it's kind of in an overhaul right now because I've done so many different things. Uh, and Also, I'm online. You can find me on Facebook, on Instagram, but the best way, I love to just talk to people directly. So my email is hello@withmegancook.com. I love answering people's questions, and I really feel like, that's when I'm at my best, is helping people be at their best. So I love to connect.
I love that. Thank you so much. And I'll make sure all the links are posted in the show notes when this comes out.
Beautiful. Thank you,
Thank
Aram.
you
This was
so much for
awesome.
coming. I had a great time talking to you, and thank you for all of your wisdom and your knowledge in this. It's been amazing. Again, thank you.
Thank you. We'll look forward to talking to you again soon.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye. Peace out, everyone. Thanks for watching.